Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rebecca, otherwise known as Hypknit Hooray Online, and today we're going to be chatting all about my fall knitting plans. So I'm really excited to be filming this video. Fall is approaching. It is 30 plus degrees outside right now and I am wearing a knit tank top, but it is the end of August, which means it's time to think about fall knitting plans for me. I'm looking off to the side here because for these seasonal planning videos, I like to always integrate my stash yarn. So I have all of that pulled here and it is a very cool tone palette. So kind of going back to my roots, I have my stash yarn here and then I have my project notes over here. For this video, I'm also going to be sharing multiple patterns or designs for one type of project. For example, I'm going to share like a cabled cardigan and I'm going to have multiple projects or patterns because we all have different tastes, so I do like to give different variations, and also I'm debating between multiple patterns as well, so I am going to share all of them but kind of go through them quickly so this video isn't too long. So maybe we can just get started with the first plan that I have, which is a cabled cardigan. So I have this yarn here. This is yarn from my Esther jacket, which I frogged earlier on this summer. It's Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, worsted weight in the shade Almond, and then Drops Kid Silk, also in the shade Almond. And I frogged my Esther jacket, and what I really wanted to knit with this yarn, because I think that this yarn has a lot of structure to it, especially the Wool of the Andes, which is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. I wanted to knit a cabled design, but I wanted to wait until the fall in case there are any new pattern releases. And there is one that I want to chat about right now. So I have two options for a cabled cardigan this season. The first one is the Siri cardigan by Knit. This is a brand new design and there's two yarn options for this cardigan. There's fingering and mohair held together, or a DK weight blown yarn, and it's knit with 6mm or 5.5mm needles depending on which yarn choice you go with. So the pattern suggests Phil Kalana, Saga, and Tilia held together, or Sandisgarn Poppy, which are yarn combinations that I really want to try knitting with, but I have this yarn here, and I think that this yarn is still going to work because I can still knit it with 6 or 5.5mm needles. I think that that would be a really great gauge actually for this yarn. It just might not be as lightweight. I guess it'll be a more dense fabric, but I think it's still going to work. This cardigan is knit top down with a raglan construction, and it features these really voluminous cables, and it is a fairly textured knit. I really like how strategic the cables are placed in this cardigan. So it may look like a lot when you first see it, but there really isn't that many. There's a horseshoe and braided cable along both fronts, and then there's that horseshoe cable along the top of the sleeve, but the rest of the cardigan is double moss stitch, which is still a textured knit, but it is a little bit more mindless and easier to keep track of the cable rounds because it's just along the front and the top as well of the sleeve. So I think it'll be a really nice process knit as well as a product knit at the end. And there's short rows worked in this pattern, so always great to see that, to create that higher back, that more comfortable fit. And I think I already mentioned, but for this cardigan, this cabled cardigan, I really wanted a high crew neckline. So this has that high crew neckline, and then the 1x1 button band is worked at the end. You pick up stitches along the front. It's a very classic construction. You have the buttons on one side and then the buttonholes on the other. So I really like this design and I think it will work really well for this yarn. But I saw this one other design, the second one, the peanut butter cardigan by Knipeee. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, on Ravelry. Her Ravelry design name and her Instagram username are different, but I'm just gonna go with her Ravelry designer name. I first saw this cardigan on my Instagram Explore page probably earlier on this winter, and I saved it immediately. So it's been in my save folder because I thought it was so beautiful, but I'm just a little bit intimidated by this construction. So the yarn is Rowan wool cotton, so a DK weight yarn on 5mm needles, and it's knit bottom up and seamed as well. So all of the pieces are worked separately. You work the back panel bottom up, and then the front 2 panels bottom up. The sleeves also bottom up. I don't know why I keep saying bottom up, but it's all bottom up, and then you seam all of those pieces together. So I don't know, I'm just a little bit intimidated with that construction. I know that seaming can create more structure to a garment, which could be really nice for this air and weight combination. And also it would be nice to get a bit more experience with knitting bottom up, just so I'm not so intimidated every time I see that construction technique. But I worry that 2 of those together, like bottom up and flat, is also just going to make me kind of unmotivated to work on this design. I don't know if other knitters feel this way, or maybe it's just me, but I worry that I'm not going to be that motivated to work on this design. But alternatively, it would be a great way for me to learn about these techniques. So I'm really debating on picking this cardigan because I do prefer the look of the cables on this cardigan over the Siri cardigan. There's many different cables worked in this cardigan. There's a large twisted cable. It's bordered by these smaller twisted cables. There's also double moss stitch. So I just really like the look of this cardigan. I'm just a bit intimidated by the design. So I'm debating between those 2 options for this yarn here. And then the next project plan I have is a jacket. I am really looking forward to knitting another jacket. I really only have one, my zipper jacket, and I wore it a lot in the spring and the fall. It's just a really nice layering piece to have, so I am excited to knit another one. And this is also a new design. It hasn't even been released yet, so I have very limited information, but I kind of wrote down what I could find about the design. We'll just have to wait until it's released. But I know the designer Kate had mentioned it's going to be released sometime in September, so won't have long now to wait. But it's the Solene cardigan by Morecaknit. So I'm holding this yarn because this is what I'm thinking of knitting. This is the yarn I'm thinking of knitting for this design. It's a really bright, bold cobalt blue, and I think it's going to be a really nice statement jacket and statement piece. So the yarn that's used in the sample is DK weight. It's Lamana Bergamo, which is 260 meters for every 100 grams, and it's knit on 4.5 millimeter needles. There is a project page on Morecaknit's website that kind of goes over the construction, so that's all I could really find about this cardigan. And also I was looking at the hashtag on Instagram to kind of see how it's constructed, but I don't know too much about it, so I'm just going to mention it very briefly. It's a pretty oversized fit. It's worked top down and in stockinette, and I really like the look of the shoulder and the sleeve fit on this cardigan. It has more of a set-in sleeve, so a narrower shoulder seam at the top, which I think works really well with the oversized fit because it's not so bulky in the underarm, which is kind of how I feel the zipper jacket feels. It kind of is a bit bulky at the underarm, so I like the look of this set-in sleeve, and it looks to be a very typical design for a sort of drop shoulder, set-in sleeve, top-down construction. You knit the back panel, you knit the 2 fronts, and then you connect it to join the rest of the body. And then after that, you pick up stitches in the round for the sleeve. And I think that sleeve cap is shaped with short rows. It looks to be based off of the posts on Instagram, but again, not totally sure. And then you have a double knit front edge. And what really attracted me to this design is the 2 I-cord ties at the front. I'm definitely not over the I-cord ties at the moment, so I really like this design, and I think that it would be a really nice statement piece in this cobalt blue, which I have had in stash for maybe 3 or 4 years now, so I'm really hoping that this is going to be the project for that design. I'm just going to keep waiting for it to be released, but I'm excited for this statement jacket. The next category of project I want to knit are lacework cardigans, and this kind of continues on from my late summer knits video where I mentioned a lot of lace cardigans, and I thought that it's really great for the warmer weather, but I've found some lacework projects that use a fingering weight and mohair together, so it's a little bit of a warmer fabric that I think would work really well for the fall season. And I'm pretty new to lacework as well. I've only knit 1, maybe 2 projects really, actually 3. I've knit a few projects with lace, but really quite new to the technique. So I was also trying to find patterns that are more approachable. I mean, at the end of the day, lace work is really just knit stitches, purl stitches, knit two togethers, yarn overs. So it's pretty basic techniques, I guess. At the end of the day, it's pretty fundamental knitting work, but you do have to kind of keep track of the lace work. So I wanted to find some projects that were a little bit more approachable. So the first one is the Peacock cardigan by Lanit or Lan Home Semso, second design from this designer that I'm featuring in my seasonal planning. But this is a design that I think is quite quintessential to Lanit. She has a lot of designs that feature that feather and fan lace motif. So if you don't like this cardigan pattern, you can check out her other designs. If you haven't seen them already, they're very popular from her Peacock series. I really wanted to knit the Peacock cardigan. I think it's very dainty. It's very beautiful. It's knit with fingering weight and lace weight yarn held together on 4mm needle, so a nice lightweight fabric. And I liked how the feather and fan motif was just along the yoke, because once you get through the yoke, then it's just stockinette afterwards, so pretty approachable. It'll be pretty simple to knit as well. And there are short rows that are integrated into this design after the lace motif at the bottom to raise the back of the neck, which I haven't done before, so that'll also be a new to me technique I'm excited to try out. And the cardigan is a bit more fitted, 9 to 12 centimeters of positive ease and pretty narrow fitted sleeves. So I think I'm gonna like that silhouette. And there is a button band. It is a 1x1 rib button band that's picked up and worked at the end. Pretty classic fit. And then the yarn that I'm thinking of using for this is, I was holding up this yarn. That's not the yarn that I wanted to use. It's this yarn here. This is yarn that I got from this store called Omomo. I don't know if it's a Canadian chain or maybe it's more worldwide than that, but it is a Japanese department store. And there's a few locations in Toronto, and they have, it's kind of like a homeware kind of store, but they have yarn as well. They have a yarn section, and this is yarn, I can't say what it is because the whole package is written in Japanese, but it is 100% wool. Maybe I'll try to link it down below if I can find it, but it is 100% wool in this brown shade here. I can show the package as well if anyone recognizes it. So I have this yarn, and then I'm thinking of holding it with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the shade Hazel. I think that this is going to work really well together with like a subtle marling. I think it's going to be really nice in this lace work. So that's the first cardigan. The second one is with this combination, and it's one that I've spoken about in multiple seasonal planning videos, so I'm really sorry if you are sick of hearing me talk about this pattern, but I think it just shows that I really want to knit it. I just haven't prioritized it. So this is going to be my first cast on of this season, because I really need to knit it, because I've had this yarn chosen for this design for a while now. It's the Kutar Wrap cardigan by Sari Nordlin. This is a cardigan that is fingering and lace weight on 5mm needles, so a pretty airy gauge. But after thinking about this cardigan for so long, I am thinking of making a few modifications to this design. I'm thinking of sizing down to 4mm needles and then maybe sizing up as well to still create the fit that I want, but on a thinner gauge. This is a cardigan that's knit top down with set-in sleeves. The back panel is not shaped with short rows, it's just a rectangular panel, but it still looks like it'll be a pretty comfortable fit, so you work that back panel and then you pick up stitches for the two fronts. I think that this would be a really great approachable pattern to get back into lace work, because it's really just mainly a stockinette project, but there's the lace motif, the Kutar lace motif on the edges of the two front panels that cross over each other, so you get that really nice dainty look with the lace, but I think pretty approachable. The only thing is with this design is you might have to read the lace chart forwards and backwards because you are knitting flat. So just something that I'm going to keep in mind when I'm knitting this design. And yeah, the lace is worked along the front, and it is a wrap cardigan, so you do have I-cord ties that you work to join the cardigan on one side. And this is another modification I'm thinking of making. I know that one of the I-cord ties wraps around the outside of the wrap cardigan along the back, and I'm thinking of maybe modifying this so it's on the inside. We'll see, but I kind of like the look of the back panel just being straight down instead of kind of like a peplum look with the wrap at the wrap tie at the back. I don't really know. Just some modifications that I'm thinking of making because I've thought about this cardigan so much. And yes, I'm thinking of using this yarn here, which is Senis Garn Sunday, and then Drops Kid Silk held together, a really nice neutral gray. It's going to be a really nice basic. And the last garment that I'm thinking of knitting this fall knitting season is a mini skirt. So you may think that, or at least I kind of thought that a skirt is more of like a summer garment, but when it becomes sweater weather, what I really like wearing is a nice woolly sweater with a mini skirt, some stockings, and then some boots. I really like the look of that, and so I thought, why not try to knit a skirt myself? So I have this yarn here. This is the leftovers from a previous project I have, my pie camisole, and it's very dusty right now because I pulled it out of my stash yarn, but I have about maybe 1¼ balls of Knitting for Olive Merino in the shade Licorice. And I have seen some fingering weight mini skirts, some designs lately, and so I could just get a few more balls, maybe just 2 more balls of this Knitting for Olive Merino, and then I can knit this mini skirt. So the first design that I'm thinking of knitting is the Thin Skirt by Wool & Beyond. It's fingering weight on 3mm needles. The suggested yarn is actually Knitting for Olive Merino, so one of the rare times I'm actually knitting with the suggested yarn. And this is a really basic mini skirt. It has a slit on one side, and it's just basic stockinette, and it's knit top down. So you first start by working the folded hem, and then you also insert an elastic waistband there, so it's going to create a pretty comfortable fit. It's going to sit really well, I think. I hope, with the elastic waistband. You also work German short rows to shape the back of the skirt, and then you work increases along the side to create a slight A-line fit, or just so it fits over your hips a little bit better, and then you work the skirt straight down. The slit is worked by then not working in the round anymore and just working back and forth, and there is really nice clean finishing to this skirt. So you work a folded down hem, which is sewn down at the end, and I just really like the look of this silhouette. I think it'll be really nice in a basic black. If you've seen my previous podcast videos, you may know that I've had some issues with the Wool & Beyond, my honey vest. So I was a little bit hesitant to maybe pick another design from Wool & Beyond, but I'm willing to try another design because I already have this pattern in my Ravelry library, but also it's a pretty straightforward project, I would say, in stockinette, and there are a few project pages already on Ravelry, so yeah, I'm thinking of this one. But another one that I was thinking could be another option is the Staple Skirt by New Wave Knitting, and this is a very simple and pretty similar silhouette to the Thin Skirt, but it is a made-to-measure pattern, and I am really intrigued to try a made-to-measure pattern. I haven't worked one before, but I think it could be a really nice custom fit, especially with a skirt where you kind of want the proportions to fit just right on your body and use your exact measurements. So a made-to-measure kind of works well for this type of garment. So yes, as it is made to measure, you can use any weight of yarn and any needle size. And the pattern calculates the number of stitches, the rows, the stitch counts, the yardage, all based off of your gauge swatch and then your body measurements that you plug into the pattern. So the staple skirt has a mini skirt option and a slit, but then there's also different lengths, different silhouettes specified in this pattern. And it also is knit top down. There's increases along the side as well to create a more comfortable fit, a slight A-line fit. And then the bottom of the skirt is also finished with a folded hem. So again, a very similar construction to the Thin Skirt, but it would be nice to get a very custom fitting skirt with my body measurements. The only thing is, I think most of the projects I've seen with this design are with DK weight yarn. I haven't really seen one with fingering weight, so I know you can totally do it because it is made to measure, but something that I'm kind of keeping in mind. And then the last skirt pattern that I wanted to maybe knit with this yarn is also another Wool & Beyond design. She has a lot of skirt patterns, which I really appreciate because I feel like there's kind of a gap in the knitting pattern market for knit skirts. But it's the Dream Wrap skirt, It's also fingering weight on 3mm needles and also uses knitting for olive merino, so I already would be using this suggested yarn. This skirt requires more yarn than the thin skirt, but it is because of that wrap construction, and I really like that silhouette. Essentially with this dream wrap skirt, you're creating this really wide knit panel that you then wrap around your body and then you tie. And you are knitting the skirt top down, and you're actually not knitting it flat. You're knitting it in the round, and then you have steek stitches that you then cut into afterwards. And then you pick up stitches to create a nice border around that, but you're not working this really wide panel flat. You're knitting it in the round, which is kind of nice. I thought that was a really cool construction technique. And with this skirt, you're also working increases along the back to create a nicer fit around your hips and around your butt. And then there's a folded hem at the bottom, which is sewn down at the end as well. So a very similar double folded hem finish for all of these skirts. So I'm not going to knit all of these, just one with this black yarn, but I think that a black mini skirt is just such a nice staple and basic to have in my wardrobe. And the last two projects are home decor. It has been a goal this year for me to knit some more decor pieces for my apartment that kind of showcase my knitting hobby, but I have yet to knit anything for my apartment this year. So this season I thought I'd really pick it up, and I found two projects that I really want to knit. So the first is the With Every Fiber of My Being chart, which is a chart from Fiber of Her Being. So this isn't really a pattern per se, but I can explain the backstory a little bit. So I've been following Alexa, who is the owner of this small business, ever since I started my Instagram, really. And I just think she's a very talented knitter. A lot of her pieces that she creates are so unique. And she also has a stitch marker and stitch marker jewelry small business. So if that sounds really interesting to you, definitely check out her website. I think she has really beautiful work. And she released this summer collection, I guess I could say, and within that she had this knit chart as a free download on her website. So it's not really a pattern per se, but it's more of a stitch chart that you could follow along. And the sample that she has is this knit wall tapestry, which I thought was really beautiful, and I would love to knit that, but you could also use it for like a pillow or a bag. So I was thinking that it would work really great for this Let Lopi that I have, which is a worsted weight yarn. So like I said, it's not really a pattern. There's not really like a suggested needle size or suggested yarn. It's just the chart, but you could easily make it work with any gauge and find the appropriate needle size for it and knit the chart. So I just really wanted to highlight this because I thought it was really generous of her to offer it as a free download, and I think it'd be a pretty quick and fun project to work up. So that's the first design. And then the second one is a knit pillow. So I'm thinking of knitting the Marie pillow by Petite Knit, which is DK weight on 3mm needles. The suggested yarn is Senescarn Sunday. So the Marie pillow features this all over garter slip stitch for the front panel, and then the back panel is actually it's intended to be a fabric backing. And I am really wanting to learn how to sew so I can make some more knit pieces that require a fabric lining that you sew in. So that will be its own hurdle for me later on this season, to learn how to sew and then be able to create this backing. I think I'm just going to probably buy the back panel from Petite Knit's website. I know that you can knit a knit back panel, but I think that the fabric panel is going to add a lot of structure to the pillow, so I think I'd like to sew in the lining, and just to make it easier for myself, I'll just get it from her website. But I can work the front panel in the meantime. And the pattern contains instructions for working that garter slip stitch in 2 colors or multiple colors. So this is also a great pattern if you want to use up all of your yarn scraps, but I kind of like the look of the 2-tone version. I think it's a nice neutral, and I've picked 2 shades that I think is going to work with my living room decor. So this is Lion Brand Fisherman's Wool in the shade Brown Heather, and this is 100% wool. And then also Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted weight, which is also 100% wool, and it's their undyed bear shade. So I think I'll do a 2-color version. I just have to double check that this is enough fisherman's wool for it. So I think that that will be a nice way to just complete my fall knitting plans, have this decor piece, check that off of my 2024 knitting goals. So yes, that was everything. Maybe a little overambitious, but what's new with my seasonal planning? I am definitely going to knit a few of these, but I probably can't guarantee I'm going to knit all of them. I hope you enjoyed watching and got some nice inspiration from this video. So thank you so much for watching, and again, thank you so much if you reached this point in the video. I'd love to know down below what your fall knitting plans are. I hope you are not overloaded with all the fall knitting plan content that you might be seeing on your YouTube pages. So yes, this will just be another one to add into the mix, but I hope that it provided some inspiration to you, and I'd love to know down below your fall knitting plans. So until my next video, happy knitting.